Hello friends and welcome back to the Boxes and Briefs podcast with me, your boy Abid. Sorry about the hiatus again, right? But in my defense, I moved, clearly. I got an infection and then I got a cold. So this is really the first time that I've actually been able to speak. Anyway, gonna be back on regular podcasts again, right? Next podcast is gonna be a special one. It's gonna be my first one with a guest. I'm going to be in the States for my brother's graduation. He's going to be the first guest on the Boxes and Briefs podcast. So yay. Yay guests. Yay podcast. Anyway, I'm going to keep it short and sweet this time. My chest is still blech. So we're going to go through a review of last Saturday's action. We're going to talk about Canelo versus Jacobs. I watched that fight live. Pretty good fight, but we'll get to that. We're going to do a quick preview of this Saturday, the UFC card, UFC 237, headlined by Namajunas versus Andrade. And then we're going to talk some Game of Thrones. Right? I need to get some things off my chest. Let's jump right in. Okay, so I watched the fight. It was Sunday morning my time. It was a pretty good fight, I have to say. Canelo versus Jacobs was an entertaining fight. It was by no means a war. It was by no means like a fight of the year. But I thought it was a great fight. I thought we saw two very high-level boxers in there. I thought we saw some pretty violent chess being played out. And I enjoyed it. I did. There was a lot of whinging on Twitter after the fight. And basically what people were complaining about was the fact that they wanted more, and I get that. I really do, because it was such a big event. It was hyped up to bits. They were comparing it to Leonard Hearns or Hagler Hearns or just anything to do with like the four kings of boxing back in the day, right? Like those middleweight matchups that are enshrined in history. But I don't think it was ever going to be that just because like it's neither guy's style, you know. But what we got was still a pretty good fight. I thought Canelo was very dominant in the beginning. I thought he definitely was going to cruise to a unanimous decision by around round 6. I was just like, okay, he's shutting Jacobs out. I gave Jacobs the first round, but nothing after that until the 7th. After the 7th, though, Jacob starts turning it up. And he acquits himself well. He does some last minute flurries. He starts moving a bit more. He starts using his jab a bit more. But I think the right man won the fight. The scores were 116-112 and 115-113 twice. My card watching the fight was 115-113, but I thought it was still a clear Canelo victory. Some major points about that fight. Canelo with his upper body movement is elite. Like, I have never seen someone so fluidly just slip punches without moving their feet. Like, he can be planted and just basically move his upper body in such a way where he... I think there's a clip online, right, of him dodging 10 punches just by bobbing and weaving in place, which was great. He also did move, like, obviously. His jab was great. I thought he landed combinations well. He was landing the harder punches throughout the fight. I've never really had Canelo on my pound for pound list. I thought he acquitted himself very well in the Gennady-Golovkin fights. But I think my love for Gennady, right, because I was always cheering for him in those fights, I think my love for Gennady kind of overshadowed how well Canelo was doing. Like, I still think Gennady won both of those fights. But watching him in with Jacobs and seeing him clearly win, right? And win by outboxing, outjabbing, outmoving the bigger guy who's known as a bit more of a boxer. I think Canelo's definitely, he has to be in the talk for top 5 pound for pound, hands down, right? I don't think he's top 3. You still have Usyk, you still have Crawford, you still have Lomachenko, but him and Gennady are pretty interchangeable at number 4, I feel. I think Jacobs also did a great job. I think it was close. It was definitely competitive throughout, but I think Canelo definitely landed the harder punches, the cleaner punches. I think what this fight is a wake-up call for Jacobs to move up. I didn't think he looked weight drained. I didn't think he looked fatigued. But when you're the bigger guy and you're really having trouble imposing your size, it's either you're being outclassed or you're weight drained. So I think he needs to move up. Plenty of good fights there. Last thing I want to say about this fight is right after I watched it, got on my laptop, started writing up an email to send to Dougie. Those of you who know me know I'm obsessed with someone called Douglas Fisher. Douglas Fisher is editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine. Absolutely love the mailbag that he does. I write in every once in a while, just give him my thoughts, see what he thinks. I would actually recommend it for anyone that's trying to get into boxing. Check out the mailbag. Why not? Like, Dougie always gives a pretty good balanced opinion, and he's a wealth of information. Like, I learned a lot from Dougie. Actually, if you guys want me to tell you, like, recommend podcasts or recommend pieces or writers or websites to get into boxing, more than happy to do that. But I guess in the meantime, let's move on to the preview. So, just want to quickly get this out of the way. There's a lot happening in boxing, right? But I'm not gonna lie, unless you're a hardcore head, the next few weeks won't do much for you. You have Vargas Berchelt. That's gonna be an amazing fight. I'm gonna watch that fight, but I don't think anyone else is. You have the World Boxing Super Series. That's gonna be super fun. Again, don't think many of you are gonna watch it. But Anthony Joshua's fighting soon. He's fighting June 1st, right? He's fighting late replacement Andy Ruiz. So I definitely think that if you want to get into boxing or you just want to see what the sport is, watch a heavyweight fight. Watch the world's most beautiful man, who I personally have a man crush on, Anthony Joshua, beat the shit out of some fat Mexican dude called Andy Ruiz, who replaces the fat American dude, Jarrell Miller, because Jarrell Miller was apparently on every performance-enhancing drug known to man. That's why that fight's happening. But I think it'll be a good fun fight. I think Joshua by knockout by the 6th. Because, like, honestly, I haven't really seen much of Andy Ruiz, but what I know of him, he doesn't sound like he's that impressive. Like, he went the distance with Parker, and honestly, like, Parker is second tier in the heavyweight division, so, and he lost a decision to him. Like, I know it was a bit controversial, but whatever, right? The big card happening this weekend, though, UFC 237, you have Rose Namajunas, Thug Rose, versus Jessica Andrade. That's going to be a fun fight, just because Rose Namajunas, well, first knocked out and then decisioned Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who honestly I thought was one of the top pound for pound in the sport. Like, women, men, just top pound for pound. She was very active. She had a lot of energy in the ring. Her cardio was crazy, and she was just constantly throwing. Constantly throwing kicks, punches, elbows, knees, all of that. She was good at judging distance, but here's the thing. Rose Namajunas outstruck her in 2 fights. One of them she ended early, right? So Rose Namajunas is definitely someone I'm interested in. And then you have Jessica Andrade, who's on a crazy winning streak and who has one-shot knockout power. That does not happen in the 115-pound division, right? So I think it'll be a fun fight. It's going to be supported by Anderson Silva versus Jared Cannonier. Don't really know much about Jared Cannonier, but Anderson Silva had a pretty good fight last time around with Israel Adesanya, stylebender, right? And I think he just has a few more fights on his contract. He's a living legend. I'm sure this will be fun. Worst comes to worst, right? We'll have a new contender in the middleweight division, which, why not? It's a division full of killers. Why not have one more, right? Best case scenario, Anderson Silva has another win to ride off into the sunset with. So, I wanted to talk this week about a bit of Game of Thrones, right? And if you haven't seen episode 3 and 4, spoilers, do not continue, blah, blah, blah. But by now you've probably seen them, so whatever. What I want to say about episode 3, because I've already ranted to just about everyone I know, and I don't want to relive the pain. I don't want to relive the trauma, right? Garbage episode, just from start to finish, absolute trash. When you have the big bad that you're building up for 8 seasons, when you take that character that has been so ominous and has been so omnipresent and omniscient and omnipotent and just like unstoppable for 8 seasons, and you have with him this force of nature, right? And then you hype up the episode and you say, this is the greatest battle scene since Helm's Deep. That is like way, way, way off base, right? Helm's Deep is a great battle scene because you see our heroes up against it, but they still try their best, and they actually have some success. They have some success here and there, but you know what? It's such an unstoppable force that they do begin to lose hope, but then they rally and they win, right? It's perfect. Helm's Deep is the perfect battle. But in this one, they're up against it, and then they just stay up against it, and it's despair, 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 helpless, oh no, screaming, I'm gonna die, you're gonna die, helpless, no, no, no. And then just Arya fucking one-shots him. My main problem with it is, right, other than the fact that you couldn't see, other than the fact that like a lot of the action didn't make sense, right, my main problem with it is that you had this thing, this force of nature that you're up against, this unstoppable force, and you've been building it up for so long, and then you just, you wrap that story up in an hour and 30 minutes, nice and tidy. Like, the whole point of Game of Thrones is that it was never nice and tidy. You know, like whenever there would be a bow put on something, there would always be like 30 asterisks, right? The Red Wedding, just like, we won. But did you? Right? It comes back and it haunts you. But with this, they just tied up all the loose ends just because it seems like once they ran out of source material, they're just not that good at coming up with it. Writing this battle, writing this episode, writing for the last 2 seasons since they've run out of source material has been pretty weak, right? Just rushing to tie it all up is not a great sign. That's all I want to say about episode 3. Moving on, right, to this week's episode. Now this week's episode, dealing with the aftermath of episode 3, I thought this week's episode was pretty strong, right? I thought this week's episode was going back like to earlier seasons in terms of quality, but there was one major glaring issue, and honestly, I don't know how I can deal with this, because I've hated this character since they introduced him. I thought he was just shit since they introduced him, right? But this episode really cements it for me, because this is the 3rd time he's done this. Euron Greyjoy coming out of nowhere again to kill a dragon and then decimate her forces and then blah blah blah. It's just like, he's such a poorly written villain. Like, he's just a deus ex machina. He's Cersei's deus ex machina, and that's all he is. He does nothing else. I think they're trying to make him likable, as in he's like the funny asshole kind of guy, but he just comes off as cringy. And like, here's the thing, Ramsay was cool because Ramsay would like be tactical. Joffrey was cool because you knew that his anger was always pointed towards something. Like, he never planned, but you knew his wrath was coming. Ramsay planned and you knew his wrath was coming. Euron, you don't know what the fuck is happening with Euron. He just fucking pops up and he just deus ex machina some garbage, and then he laughs and then he says some sexual innuendo to Cersei, and it's not that fun. He's not a good villain. He's poorly written and it's garbage. And like, that scene in this week's episode was so bad. Like, honestly, the second they pulled away from the dragons and you see her smiling while riding on them, I'm just like, okay, well, Rhaegal's gonna die. And lo and behold, with like surgical precision, like four bolts go into Rhaegal's fucking chest and neck and head, and it's just like, okay, cool. saw that coming. And then, obviously, Drogon, who has the thickest plot armor of any of the characters at this point. Not a single one even grazes him, right? Like, I don't know, lie to me. Hit his tail. Like, make it interesting. Okay? And then the yada yada, like, Missandei getting captured, which was dumb. Like, honestly, I was sad when I thought she died, and then she was alive. I was like, that's kind of dumb that you guys saved her and like, just kidnapped her. Like, that's dumb. Show me how, because you were so far away, and she jumped off the boats. Explain. That scene was pretty rough, right? But otherwise, that episode was pretty strong. I liked all the farewells. I liked Jon and Tormund saying goodbye. I love that. Tormund's story is perfect. He goes up north now. He finds some giant women. He sucks on the tits. It's great. Yay. Jaime and Brienne, wow. Loved that scene. Honestly, that scene was on par with their scene in the jacuzzi. Like, that's how good that scene was for me. Daenerys finally turning into the Mad Queen. That's cool. Like, can't wait to see that finally fucking pay off. It was a good episode. So what I had planned to do originally was to do reviews of the episodes in the podcast, but since they've been coming out, I've been sick or moving or whatever. But gonna do that moving forward. There's only 2 more episodes left for Game of Thrones. Hopefully they're good. We'll see. At this rate, we don't know. But I'm hopeful based on last episode. As long as they find something to do with Euron, because him Deus Ex Machina-ing is not entertaining. Find something for him to do that makes sense. Don't just use him as a writing device, right? Well, that was it for this episode, friends. I'm sure this one was a bit shorter. I have no idea until I actually edit. Let me know if you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Let me know your comments. Always love the feedback. Always want to improve. That's about it. See you next week. Much love, babes.